Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer. The DRF race of the day for Thursday, May the 30th. Race number 7 at Delaware Park. First level allowance with a 17,500 claiming option. We're going about 1 mile on the turf. Let's take a peek at this field. It's a pretty full field. We've got a couple of horses entered on the main track list. That's the number 2 Exit Right, the 8 Mac Man, the 9 Collection Day, and some horses on the also eligible list, the 12, 13, and 14. But all in all, Mike, if this race stays on the turf, it's a pretty evenly matched bunch, and you got a couple from the Grand Motion barn.
Yeah, I didn't think there was a standout in here necessarily, Dan. I guess we'll talk about these horses more, obviously. I don't know. I thought there were a few different ways to go. You have some lightly raced horses who I feel like are interesting in here, but they'll probably have to up their game a little bit to get to the older, more experienced rivals.
I wonder if pace will make the race in here. We throw up our Timeform US pace projector, and Cannon's Roar is a horse with good tactical speed. He doesn't win very often, but he usually shows up. And as he showed at Tampa Bay over the winter, if you give him an easy lead and let him just walk along, he can take you a long way.
Yeah, it really feels like the mile distance, too, is a real benefit to this horse. I think a little shorter is better for this horse. And he's just got such good tactical speed. He's in some ways, I feel like he's the horse to beat in here.
The key to the pace might be the 3 Twist and Twirl, because this is a guy that kind of pulls hard in the early portion of his races. And I wonder if he'll just get into a fighting match with his rider, or if the rider just lets him go. The number 1 Mission Man has the LP flag over his chiclet. That means he has the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. And talking about Mission Man, he's a very interesting case. He's a half-brother to the very good sprinters Caravel, who won the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, and Whitty, who's a multiple stakes winner on turf and dirt. But this guy wants distance. He's big. He's about 1,200 pounds. He really didn't fire on his first start off the layoff, Mike, but that was a long layoff, and he was trying to go 1 1/8 miles. Not easy task.
Yeah, and a race that was taken wire to wire, too. This horse was always well back off of it. I mean, he didn't do any running there, which, I guess I could say I'm not thrilled with, but it was just his first start back. It feels like this is probably a better spot for him. He's back to 1 mile here, and he's got a great post on the inside, too. So there could be a really good trip coming for this horse. I can't say that I love him in here, Dan, but I do think he's a major player.
The number 3 is Twist and Twirl, a horse going second off of the layoff, and he pushed the pace last time out at Laurel. They tried to go 1 mile with him. The pace wasn't very fast. He likely gained a lot of fitness from that effort, Mike, and he ran well at Delaware against similar company in a pretty live race 2 starts back, but he's eligible for a non-winners of 2 life, and sometimes he can be his own worst enemy because he refuses to settle.
We'll see what kind of trip he can pull in here. He is one of those horses, though, I kind of feel like maybe you can project even a little bit more improvement, Dan, if you're right that he needed that start off the layoff last time. Because, listen, it was a limited 4-year-old campaign last year, but I did feel like he improved throughout that campaign, and maybe he can take one more step forward in here.
Cannon's Roar is the number 4, and he has a good amount of back class. He's multiple stakes placed. He just doesn't win very often. He's 10 years old, though, and he's still trucking. Here's his most recent start at Laurel, going 1 1/8 miles. He's the favorite. He sat just off the pace. He turns into the stretch, and you're thinking Cannon's Roar is finally going to seal the deal. And not only does he not seal the deal, he's lucky to hold third.
It feels like the distance really works against him here, Dan, the 9 furlongs. He looks like a winner here in mid-stretch, and he just can't get away from these horses. And then he doesn't have anything left at the end of this race. It's disappointing in some ways, but he ran fine in that race. I'm concerned that that's now 4 races in a row where he's had the lead in the stretch and he didn't hold on to any of them. Again, I think that in some ways he's the horse to beat in here. I'm not sure how much I trust him.
But he might get a very nice trip from close to the pace. And he does have back class and a competitive recent figure, but 17 times a bridesmaid. The number 5 is Gavin Brody. He's only run 5 times in his career. This 3-year-old's going to get blinkers for the first time, and he's going to need a big buyer boost.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I mean, this was the kind of race, the more I looked at it, the more I wanted horses that kind of look like Gavin Brody, sort of lightly raced horses. Maybe there's a forward move coming. I happen not to like this horse's races enough to even really consider him in here, but I guess there's a chance he moves forward.
Here's another veteran, the number 6, Sacred Rider, a 7-year-old going to the post for the 50th time in his career and switching surfaces for a new barn. He's done his best work on synthetic and turf in his career. Perhaps getting back to the lawn will wake him up. It's been a long time between drinks.
Yeah, I mean, his recent form is just not good at all. And I realize they're dirt races, but he's got some dirt races on the go back that are pretty good. So I don't know how much of an excuse I want to give him for the recent form, Dan. He hasn't been running well. And if you want to go back to he has won on turf before, but if you want to go back to those, you're going back 4 years to get to his last turf win.
Sharp Tones is the number 7, and the one and only time he raced at Delaware Park on the turf, it was his career debut. He was able to win that race at 6-1. I'm not interested in the most recent start on dirt behind Fletcher, who's a pretty good horse. I think he was actually third in the Penn Mile a couple of years ago or last year. 2 starts back, though, at Laurel. That was the race where Sports Editor wired the field. I just didn't see any excuse. Maybe it was a
Yeah,
little bit of a better group because Fulmineo came back to win his stake, but he had a good trip and he didn't fire.
I agree. It was a better field than this one, but he just didn't run that well. He's still lightly raced, though. He's only got 3 turf starts. That race, if you just wanted to say he was in way too tough there, this is a way better spot. He's back on turf with a little bit of speed, too, and he's 15-1 on the line. I'm not arguing with any of that.
The 8 MacMan is entered main track only. The 9 Collection Day is entered main track only. So we'll move on to the number 10 Incheon. And there are a lot of moving parts here for Incheon. First time gelding, blinkers off. This is a horse that's always hinted at something, Mike. He really hasn't broke through with a big performance. But his most recent start at Tampa Bay, he missed the break, and it was a race that was just dominated on the front end.
Yeah, 2 favorites went 1-2 around the track. This horse wound up last and just really couldn't get into it. It was his first start as a 3-year-old, Dan. He hasn't run a fast race yet, but I thought he was showing signs of some improvement there towards the end of last year. I think his overall turf form is fine. They're just not fast races. I wonder how much he could move forward here. I do think those last 2 starts, he's just in against way better horses than this in those races. I think this is a great spot for this horse.
If you're looking for a total stranger, the 11 Grandma Ding Dong is going to be trying turf for the first time, and there's a tiny bit of turf pedigree here. I think the second dam won on the grass. This barn doesn't win a lot with turf horses, and this outside post might make sure that this horse is worth a price, but stretching out for the first time, maybe he could get forwardly placed in a race without a ton of speed.
Yeah, another lightly raced 3-year-old here, switching surfaces, so maybe you'll get a forward move. I didn't want to totally dismiss him, Dan. I didn't find enough that I could hold on to in here, but another horse who should be a pretty big price.
The 12, 13, and 14 are all entered as also eligibles. I could see a horse like Covert Cat or the 14 Silk War making an impression if they get into the body of this race, especially a horse like Covert Cat, who might be a little bit cheap, but is also very tactical, and Trombetta has been on fire in Maryland.
Yeah, I agree that they were the 2, AE horses. If they got in, maybe I would take a second look and reevaluate it because I do feel like if they get in, they're getting into a pretty good spot.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Thursday DRF race of the day. We're both going to go with Incheon. Again, a lot of changes, new gelding, blinker change, shipping in from Tampa Bay after being wired in a slow-paced race. It's a little bit of a tough spot. He's going to be facing some salty older horses. I do think the 6-1 is fair.
I do too. And it's the kind of race, right? Again, I just sort of wanted the lightly raced horse that maybe could take a step forward in here rather than going for a horse like Cannon's Roar, who I put second. And I think he's the horse to beat in here, but I can't fully trust him.
I want to give the 11 Grandma Ding Dong a little bit of a chance at a big price to spice things up as well as Incheon. 10-4-3-1 for Mike, 10-11-4-7 for me. It is the Thursday DRF race of the day, and it's the 7th at Delaware Park. Good luck.